For the first 30 seconds here is exactly what awaits you in this video, a complete journey through darkest and most unforgettable day where humor, tragedy, curiosity, and shock collide, revealing how one single moment Peter Parker forever. Why? This story still defines who Spider-Man truly is. How responsibility turned from a slogan into a burden. And why this turning point proves that being a hero is not about power or jokes, but about carrying loss with a smile that hides permanent scars, making this one of the most intriguing and unforgettable Spider-Man stories ever told. Spider-Man has always been known as the superhero who jokes in the face of danger. The friendly neighborhood hero who swings through the city with humor, optimism, and a sense that things will somehow work out in the end. But this story begins where that illusion quietly breaks. On this day, Peter Parker is not defined by spectacular battles or world-ending villains, but by something far more dangerous, the sudden realization that no amount of intelligence, strength, or sarcasm can protect the people he loves from the consequences of his choices. At first glance, everything feels familiar, because Peter's life is always balanced on chaos, missed bills, broken alarms, and impossible expectations. Yet beneath that familiar chaos is a tension that feels heavier than usual, as if the universe itself is leaning in, waiting for a mistake. Spider-Man cracks jokes because that is what he does, masking anxiety with humor, turning fear into punchlines, and pretending that confidence is the same thing as control, even when deep down he knows that control has always been an illusion. What makes this day so fascinating is how ordinary it begins, because the most devastating moments in Peter Parker's life rarely arrive with dramatic warnings. They slip in quietly, disguised as routine. And that is where the curiosity sets in, because this is not a story about Spider-Man failing to stop a villain. It is about Spider-Man learning that being present is sometimes not enough. Every decision Peter makes feels reasonable in the moment. Every choice justified by logic, responsibility, or urgency. Yet each one subtly pushes events toward an outcome he never intended. Humor plays a strange role here because Spider-Man's jokes are not just for the audience. They are survival mechanisms, reflexes developed to keep fear at a distance. Even as the stakes rise, Peter keeps talking, keeps joking, keeps pretending that everything is manageable, because stopping would mean acknowledging the truth. That being Spider-Man means accepting a life or loss is not a possibility, but a guarantee. This contrast between humor and looming tragedy is what makes the story so emotionally intriguing, because it reminds us that laughter does not prevent pain, it only delays it. As the day unfolds, responsibility tightened around Peter, like an invisible web, pulling him in multiple directions at once, because Spider-Man's greatest strength has always been his willingness to help everyone, and his greatest weakness is believing that he can. This is where curiosity turns into dread, as the realization sets in that no matter how fast he moves, someone will always be left waiting, and sometimes that wait becomes permanent. The city keeps moving, crimes continue, lives intersect, and Peter is forced to prioritize, not knowing that one of those priorities will haunt him forever. The turning point does not arrive with explosions or dramatic speeches. It arrives with silence, with the kind of quiet that feels wrong. The kind that lingers too long, the kind that signals that something irreversible has happened. In that moment, Peter Parker is no longer just a superhero dealing with consequences. He becomes a symbol of something far more human. The crushing weight of realizing that good intentions do not guarantee good outcomes. What makes this story endlessly compelling is how it reshapes Spider-Man's identity without changing his powers at all. Peter does not become stronger, faster, or smarter after this day, but he becomes heavier, emotionally and mentally, carrying a burden that never fully fades. His humor evolves, becoming sharper, more defensive, sometimes darker, because laughter becomes a shield rather than an expression of joy. The jokes remain, but the innocence behind them quietly disappears. There is a cruel irony at the heart of this story, because Spider-Man exists because of loss, and yet loss continues to define him. The idea that great power comes with great responsibility stops being a lesson and becomes a sentence. Something Peter cannot escape, no matter how many villains he defeats or lives he saves. This is where the story becomes truly intriguing, because it forces us to question whether being Spider-Man is a blessing or a curse, and whether Peter Parker is brave for continuing or simply unable to stop. Even years later, this day echoes through every version of Spider-Man, influencing his decisions, his relationships, and his constant self-doubt. It explains why he hesitates, why he overcompensates, why he carries guilt even when he succeeds. This single moment becomes the lens through which Peter views the world, teaching him that heroism is not about winning, but about enduring, even when the cost feels unfair. What keeps this story from becoming unbearably dark is the strange resilience at its core. Because despite everything, Peter does not give up. He keeps swinging, keeps helping, keeps smiling. Not because he believes everything will be okay, but because he believes that stopping would mean letting the loss define him completely. This balance between pain and perseverance is what makes Spider-Man so relatable. Because his greatest battles are not fought with fists, but with doubt, regret, and the fear of failing again. By the end of this story, Spider-Man is forever changed. Not in costume or ability, but in perspective. The world feels sharper, consequences feel closer, and responsibility feels heavier. Yet the jokes remain, the suit stays on, and the city still needs him. This is why Spider-Man's darkest day is not just a tragic moment, but a defining one. Proving that the hero we love exists not because he is perfect, but because he keeps going despite knowing the cost. If you enjoyed this curious, emotional, and intriguing deep dive into the story that changed Peter Parker forever, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more incredible superhero stories. Comment below with your thoughts on Spider-Man's darkest day. And share this video with someone who believes heroes never break. Because Spider-Man's greatest strength has always been standing back up after he does.